In this episode, we look at political leadership, but the conclusions we describe apply to all organizational bodies. Are democracies stable? Will they succumb to becoming autocratic? What factors determine why some leaders stay in power while others are quickly replaced? The answers surprisingly boil down to one variable, which is the size of the group the leader depends on to stay in power. When this group is small and can be paid off and controlled, dictatorships ensue. When this group is large, then satisfying them to stay in power means acting democratically. Bueno de Mesquita and Smith in 2011 studied leaders in politics, corporations, and other large organizations. They asked the questions of how these leaders manage to come to power, stay in power, and, in many cases, commit wrongdoings without suffering any consequences. They break politics into three groups. First is the nominal selectorate. These are also called the interchangeables. This includes every person who has at least some legal say in choosing their leader. These consist usually of the pool of potential voters who have very little say in the political process. The real selectorate, or the influentials, is the group that actually chooses the leader. In China, for instance, this would consist of the Communist Party. In Great Britain, it would consist of the members of Parliament. Number three, and finally, is the winning coalition, also called essentials. And these are the most important. These are the people whose support is necessary if the leader is to survive in office. They can consist of wealthy corporate donors, the militia, or members of the ruling party. Differences in the size of these groups determines almost everything that happens in politics. A dictatorship has a small number of essentials drawn from a large group of interchangeables. A democracy has a large number of essentials and interchangeables. Dictators spend a large amount of money on a small number of essentials to buy their support and stay in power. They take from the poor and give to the rich. Leaders of democracies have to spend money on public goods that benefit a larger percentage of their population in order to gain their support and get reelected. They take tax revenues and distribute them back out to their voters. If an incumbent continues to pay off his supporters, there are very few things that will remove him from power. These are his passing away, the rise of a challenger, an external invasion, or other type of foreign intervention, or an internal revolution. What this means is that despots get themselves and a small number of loyalists rich while keeping the vast number of people in the country poor and disadvantaged. Democracies, on the other hand, are more accountable to the people, and so cash gets distributed in a more large-scale way. A challenger can effectively rise to power and replace a leader if they are capable of finding an issue over which the incumbent's supporters disagree. Then they can cut off his popular or financial support. In fact, democratic leaders are in power far less than autocrats because it's harder to keep more people happy. In a phenomenon known as the resource curse, countries with national resources show worse economic growth and greater autocracy. Saudi Arabia, for instance, has a seemingly inexhaustible supply of oil, but much of the revenues generated from it have gone to enriching the royal family with less money being spent on the people. National resources are a boon to autocrats as they allow them to pay off their supporters to perpetually stay in power. This shows that increased wealth is not always linked to better governance. Some countries like China become less democratic as they become wealthier. On the other hand, autocratic nations that become more democratic tend to become more rich. So political improvements lead to economic improvements more than the other way around. Although it might seem contrary, foreign aid often hurts the countries that it is sent to. Nations that receive foreign aid seldom democratize. This can be for a variety of reasons. First, autocrats take the money and redirect it away from its intended purpose. Much of U.S. aid sent to countries to help with disaster relief, in fact, ends up in dictators' coffers. Second, aid is often used to buy foreign policy influence. During the Cold War, lots of American money was used to prop up brutal Latin American dictators in their stance against communism. Will democracies survive? History shows that democracies with large winning coalitions are robust and unlikely to revert to autocracy. Although the leaders themselves don't last as long as autocrats, the democracies that they lead do. In the United States, the Constitution, Electoral College, and other political procedures have remained largely unchanged for centuries. The only factor that can change this in the historical data is external military conquest. In autocracies, on the other hand, conditions for the general public are so poor that they are unable to orchestrate a rebellion that will replace the ruling power structure. They may demonstrate, as we have seen recently in Iran, but these demonstrations don't often result in the transition to a democratic ruling system. This is especially true if the dictator in question has the support of state institutions like the army, police, and political party. We can sum up this research on selectorate theory quite simply. More representative democracies are more stable. The larger the group a leader relies on, the less likely that leader will turn autocratic. One way to ensure this is to have a system where each individual vote counts towards the election. Voters should be able to elect their leaders directly without intermediary institutions like the Electoral College, where we vote for a representative who then in turn votes for us.